mode.
Hey everyone, welcome to this month's go-to webinar. Today's series is actually on perpetual refinances. Our goal with today's webinar was to share with you some of the insights we've gotten. I mean, obviously rates have gone down, and so there are some refinances happening just from general rate reduction, some streamline, some rate and term, and ultimately that's not super interesting to talk about. So the reason we chose this week's topic is we've been getting a lot of interest from people looking for maybe just refinances that are not maybe right off the top of your head what you would consider, what you'd think of. And so besides kind of the boring, hey, there are some streamline opportunities out there, we actually have quite a bit of data coming in on other kinds of refinance activity, other kinds of loans that are happening, the behavior patterns that are leading to that. So I'm excited to talk about it. We have Louis on this week's call with us as well. And just as an introduction, my name is William LeBaron. I'm the VP of Business Development here. And we have Louis Zitting. He's the CEO of Monitor Base.
Hello.
And he actually does a lot on the data side. He really gets into analyzing the behaviors, and he actually works pretty extensively to develop some of our predictive models and our marketing campaigns in finding what exactly are the behaviors that matter, the characteristics that do lead to mortgage shopping and what doesn't. So I'm super stoked to have his insight on this particular presentation. It should help us all have a better understanding by the end. So jumping in, I kind of want to talk about two mindsets in a refinance environment, because we have a lot of corporate clients and they oftentimes brag. They say, we have an 85% purchase to refinance ratio, because they want to, identify that they are a strong mortgage shop that is not only doing lots of production because it's a refi year, where, next year if refis went away, they would be a much smaller business. And it's something they hold to. And they kind of fall into the first mindset, which is not to refi. They are, we want to keep on doing what's working. Refis come and refis go. And what they're interested in is consistent business that's not temporary production volume 1 month or a couple of months that goes away later. Where you have other shops that are get while the getting's good, and you guys are going to fall probably somewhere in the middle here. You're going to get some streamlines coming your way. You're going to get some rate and terms that you'll do, but what we're seeing is this kind of tug of war between, should we go and dedicate some resources, do some marketing, and get some refi business, or should we just keep focusing on what's working? And even though you might lose a little bit in the short term, maybe we should focus on this. And it's this kind of philosophical battle. And what we want to talk about is there's actually far more opportunities out there that maybe you aren't aware of, or maybe people haven't thought of identifying, that are not rate sensitive. It's opportunity to do refinance business that doesn't require a lower interest rate environment. You can be in a stagnant rate environment or even an increasing rate environment, and there are still refinances happening. And so that is one aspect that where you can get this more sustainable, less rate sensitive refinance business. And we want to talk about some of those opportunities, where you can find it. And obviously, jumping into that, Louis was talking to me about it this morning. I know margin plays a really big role in this as well, because where you can, find some refi opportunities, you were just telling me a lot of these streamlines, the margin is just like razor thin on your side, Louis?
Yeah, so so we do have a lot of clients that are, streamlined shops, and they're happy that rates are coming down. They're back in business, but the complaint is that the margins are still really thin on a streamline refinance. So they're happy to be back in business, doing some loans and paying their processors and underwriters, but there's still not a lot of margin. So what we're finding is that there's a lot more opportunity in the full qual refinances, where it's a cash out or a rate and term, where they're changing from a basically load and type altogether. And so that's kind of what we want to go into today. And one more thing on should you have a refi model as well as all of your purchase business? What we've found is that, and this is from feedback from clients, whether they like it or not, when all those refinances disappeared through the end of last year and early this year, they, a lot of the mortgage shops were hurting because even though they were only 20% refi, that's the 20% that was their profitability. So, there's always, I'm sure we're preaching to the choir, but there's always good money in some of the refis, but you don't want to get so distracted that, when those go away because the market shifts at 0.5%, then you've, got all of the staff that you can't pay.
Right.
So that's why, we're really interested in the perpetual refis, or we call them structural refis, that are less rate sensitive. There's so much stuff going on in people's lives, their credits migrating and changing, that there's always these opportunities. So let's start going through some of those. One of the obvious ones that everyone's been doing for years is, an FHA to conventional to drop mortgage insurance. That's not old, that's not news, and so we won't go too much into that. People, the credit improves. There's been such a run up in equity that they can, drop that FHA mortgage insurance, and that's a savings even if there's not a big drop in interest rate. Cash outs, obviously, there's, the majority of the refinances done over the last year were cash outs, because again, there's some other factor besides rate that's driving those. But some of the more interesting ones that are trends that we're seeing recently in the last 6 months is conventional to FHA refinances. So actually, when we looked at last 6 months, 50% of the refinances that took place that went to, that refinanced to an FHA loan were from some conventional type of mortgage or non-QM mortgage to an FHA loan. So you would think that's not the progression because the FHA loan has mortgage insurance, but there's so many other factors that come into play that's happening in a big way. Some of those, obviously, there's non-QM mortgages. There's hundreds of thousands of those out there. Really high interest rates. They, for whatever reason, they need to get the deal done. They've got an offer on a house that they just, can't live without, and so they'll do whatever kind of financing they can get done with the plan of, I'll refinance this later down the road when I finish my taxes. If they're self-employed, or they can get some debts paid down by once they sell their old, their current home and buy this new one. There's usually a good bunch of equity. They can pay off credit cards and their credit comes up. So that was very interesting to find so many of those loans going from a conventional to an FHA. And then a lot of those obviously are cash out. You can get more cash out on an FHA than when you have a lower FICO than if you're trying to do a conventional cash out. Another big trend we see is if you have the credit for it, then many people just opt for an equity line because it's so much easier. And we've heard this over and over that, yeah, they know they could get a better interest rate overall if they were just to do a cash out refinance, but there's so much involved paperwork and a full appraisal that that a lot of people just go to their credit union, get an equity line. It takes a week, and they do a drive-by appraisal, and then they have the money they need to solve whatever problem they have that they're trying to solve. So that could be paying off debts, doing a home improvement loan, or doing home improvements. And then, once they've solved that problem, then they've got all the time in the world. They might have even improved their credit, that now they can go and gather up all the paperwork to do that cash out refinance. So we see a lot of people that, right after or a couple months after getting an equity line, they engage in, a mortgage process of doing just a cash out FHA loan. So that's a big one that we see spurring a lot of that refinance activity. Another interesting thing we'll see is that with so much appreciation in the market, and it's really competitive to get your offer accepted. We're seeing that a lot of the times, even in FHA loans, they put in an offer, and then the appraisal comes in much higher, and so they do whatever they need to do to close that loan because they know that instantly they're going to have some equity, and so we see a lot of that. There's a ton of them where you would think that the majority of the FHA purchases are done at like 97% or around there, but it turns out there's a lot of people that actually even put money down on an FHA loan, or the appraisal comes in so much higher. So, once they hit that 1 year mark when they can use the appraisal versus the purchase price, then that's a refi opportunity. They could go, they may be already at 80%, or even a lower MI option that they could refinance to. Okay, so again, on the margin concept, we're seeing that there's a huge difference in rate and margin in between like a 620 FICO and a 680. So that's kind of also creating a continual refinance opportunity for credit migration, because you might, if someone's at a 620, they might, with all the pricing adjustments, they might be, the best they can do is a 5%, or 5.25% in a lot of mortgage shops, but just that difference to between a 620 and a 680 or 700 is a big pricing difference, and so there's a lot of people, and those are kind of the targets for the refinances. They get a high interest rate. Credit migrates, and then just because of that alone, they have so many other options to just drop their interest rate. So,
and when we were talking about it, you talked about, I thought it was two interesting stories. One was the borrower who goes out, sells their current home, purchases their new home, but instead of taking that equity they earned, they go and pay off debts. So you have this brand new person who went out there with they wanted the property, everything was right, but their credit immediately skyrockets. They go from credit card debt, all of these things, to no debt, one mortgage, and it's actually a huge swing almost immediately.
Yeah.
And it's just someone choosing to make a smart choice and say, I'm going to go with the full debt on a 4% and get rid of all of these 12, 18% credit cards. And it totally changes the picture for that person in just, a couple of months.
Yeah. So big, a lot of credit migration is a huge factor in this, especially with the difference in margin between those. And so that's kind of what we wanted to go over, and I would love to have, any questions you guys have, or comments, send us those. I think you can do them in chat or after the fact.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of opportunity that we're just seeing come through. We monitor 9 million records. We're seeing a lot of this opportunity come through, and we look at, besides the records we're monitoring, we're looking at the entire population and the loans that are getting funded, to sort of see these trends. And so yeah, that's
yeah, and I was really excited. I think you guys had another example of someone who did, and it's related to Randall's question about non-QM to conventional opportunities. Interesting, non-QM to conventional. I think that blog Jeff wrote the other day, which talked about it. This guy went out, it was what did you say the rate was again?
Yeah, he got like a 7.5%. He's a self-employed borrower, very busy. He put in an offer. The appraisal came in at 100,000 higher, so he just did whatever he had to do to get that closed, and still a year later, he's still sitting on that interest rate, even though he's got money in the bank. He could get it done. He's got his, taxes all submitted. A lot of business owners will extend their taxes till October because they're busy through the spring. And so we hear so many of these stories where somebody's paying a super high interest rate, and once the news starts to say interest rates are coming down, then they start asking, and they don't know the products. They don't know, they might think, well, when I did this before, they said that I couldn't do a conforming product because of XYZ, but I wanted to start asking around. And so I think we're going to see a lot of those happening just due to the fact that the news is saying interest rates have dropped. But these opportunities have been, even as rates were flat, there's still just, hundreds of thousands of opportunities for refis in the data. And that's one example.
Yeah, and so I do want to kind of start transitioning to the next part here, because as we're talking about, and it goes toward Randall's question, how do you find these? Where do you find these opportunities? Because it's actually baked in from our perspective. We do the database monitoring. We monitor, for some of you on the call, your past customers, the people that you funded loans for, and we identify these kinds of behaviors through our inquiry monitoring, through our predictive monitoring, through our migration monitoring. It's notifications on these kind of patterns as people are progressing through the steps where it's like, this is now the right time to talk to them. But what we're seeing, we have 9 million people in our database. Those aren't all, mortgage companies' past customers. That expands out to past prospects, even realtor prospect databases. And so when you're considering how do you go about, finding these opportunities, if you have a data source for this kind of behavior, you can absolutely go out there and start saying, this is what I'm looking for. For us, the way we're addressing this particular need in the market and this new trend is we've begun to implement these kind of behaviors into our predictive monitoring and our migration monitoring. And we're starting to help identify which of these borrowers are entering these steps and which of these people. And then we're also doing some training, and this is actually going to segue into our webinar that we're hosting. It'll probably be about the end of July, on how to build your database. Because we all know that your database is your most valuable asset. And where do you go to find these? Start with your own past customers. Because I don't know about you, as we were going through the data and what Louis shared on today's call, and as we were trying to get ready for this webinar, I was actually surprised. I was a little bit shocked, really, to learn that 50% of the cash outs were happening conventional to FHA. I don't know, that took me by surprise. And what that, at least from my perspective, says is there's got to be actually quite a bit of opportunity within your own set of customers that maybe you didn't quite realize, because structurally, the loan wasn't particularly a better loan. Side by side, most people prefer that conventional to an FHA. But it's really the life cycle of the customer themselves that makes the product useful for them. It solves something in their life, as opposed to, giving them the most ideal financing. And you guys are all good at your job. You're going to work to give the borrowers the best deal. And that just doesn't always mean the lowest mortgage insurance and the best interest rate, in this sense that you have this huge trend of people going from that conforming to an FHA. And so what we say is, start with your database. That's your most valuable asset. And this is a really powerful way to go out there and start building business. But expand your database. Who actually belongs in your database? Your past funded loans? Absolutely. Past prospects. But we're seeing lots of success in loan originators partnering with realtors, acquiring a database there in a way that's approved by your company legally. And then you monitor that, and there's all kinds of opportunity in that set of people. And it's just one connection away. It's like a second degree connection instead of a first, but that's still very powerful. And then we also, there's some of you do very good jobs at local branding. And if you can monitor a regional area, get us, a list or some people in your local area, there's some real power in that. And your ability to generate actual business out of your database it becomes exponentially more powerful as you build and add to that database. So that's kind of what we're going to go into in our next webinar is how can you build your database, who belongs in your database, and some of the more powerful tools there.
And we actually have ways that we can help you build your database, outside of your past clients or, whatever your connections are to agents or other referral partner sources. Those are going to be the best because, being able to say, here's how I know you, the response is much higher versus reaching out to just somebody that's a cold customer, hasn't seen your face before. But what we're starting to help some clients with is building that database where let's say I want everybody that's like, this sort of profile in my county or in my MSA, and I want to monitor that population. You can also pull it out, and there's a lot of people doing some Facebook retargeting or marketing, so they're seeing your brand so that once they come into the market and they have one of those alerts that we know is telling us there's some sort of intent signal, it helps if they've seen your face before or seen your brand before. So yeah, there's a lot we can do together to build the database. There's hundreds of different attributes on consumers, and we can even go and put together a database of non-QM mortgages for you to monitor. That's something that we're just kind of starting to beta test now. But be thinking of the ways that you can get those consumers to monitor, and then you'll see in the predictive alerts or migration when those are having those changes to where there's some sort of opportunity available.
And that to us is the golden ticket of, buying a random list of people that meet this criteria and then marketing them one time is a high cost, it's expensive to test, and you get one try. And if your marketing piece was off, if you didn't quite execute, if you got sick that week and you missed too many phone calls, it's a lot of money, and it's just one roll of the dice. And so what we're finding is if we can get a group of people that already have a predisposition to respond to you because you've worked with their realtor before, or your local area and they have that exposure, or even you're just obviously your customer database, the people that have worked with you personally, those people already have this far, far higher likelihood to respond to you and to your marketing. And once you have that set of people, when you can do this kind of data analysis on them, it's a really powerful conversation. And that's when you really ratchet down and get that very, very low cost per acquisition. Because what you don't want to do is spend, $2,000 marketing your local area and close one loan, because that's a numbers game and it's hard to do. But if you can take the things that are already to your advantage, the set of people that will respond to you, that you have that connection to, and you can capitalize on that, you can build a system around that generates really low cost per acquisition marketing, and it's based on the things that you've already built, and it's not capital intensive. It's not requiring a big, huge marketing budget that you're throwing out there to test a marketing piece. It's systems that you already are running, and then you're just adding to that database to say it's working with my past funded clients. How about my past prospects? How about my realtor's past customers? Maybe their prospects, my local region. And that's how you get the machine running, and it doesn't ever require a huge capital investment or a test that you find out you spent all your money and the phone rang. But it's not the same when it's random set of people, one shot, versus something you can build a system around that will get perpetual deals coming your way in a way that's not rate dependent. So that's kind of what we're talking about here, is how do you get the right set of people and start looking into that behavioral analytics for the right set of behaviors. And that combination is what will make this profitable, not just this month when rates are down, but in the next 6 months and 12 months and 18 months as you're moving through an obviously changing environment. So that would be for our answer to the question, Randy. And I know maybe that's too self-promotional, but you asked Monitor Base what our solution is for how how to find these. So that would be our answer. But obviously this information is yours now. You guys are welcome to take this and look for any other version of this and share those insights with us if you guys feel like it. We're always curious to hear about other versions of what is driving people into the market, because we want to know, and that's something we're always searching for, is what is making someone go from not looking for a mortgage to looking for a mortgage, because really that's what all of our customers want to know. They want to know when to reach out to their customers so that they can market them effectively, and in a lot of ways when they don't need to be marketing that customer. So that's our presentation. Anything we want to wrap up with before we close this out, Louis?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, William's really making the point of, we see a lot of our successful clients really have a good system of nurturing, and it's about feeding more into that database that they're nurturing. Yeah.
For sure. And we have people going crazy with that whole database thing. So we don't quite advocate go crazy, upload the whole county. But if you can build that right list, there's real power in that local brand, that thing that you've built, especially for any of you who are doing other kind of marketing campaigns. You have any kind of other system built to do the follow-up. When you get some of those pieces aligned, it's amazing what you can put through that funnel and just create production out of it. So we're excited. I hope you guys have found the some of the insights here interesting. We thought these were a little bit counter to your standard, rates are down, do some streamline refinances. And this might give you a way to start adding some of these tools to your tool set. So if you do have any other questions, feel free to email sales@monitorbase.com, William@monitorbase.com. We're always happy to hear insight. We have been recording this, so you'll get a copy of this as well afterwards for your reference. Other than that, thank you all so much. We really appreciate your attendance here and your attention through this presentation. Again, that email is sales@monitorbase.com or William@monitorbase.com. But for now, we'll close this out and hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thank you.